for sending TOWs into the heat of battle, the Army pioneered the improved tow vehicle. The ITV protects the crew of 4 from enemy attack.
Tonight I'm going to do a quick teardown of my old M901 ITV based on an old 21st Century Toys remote control M113 A2 that was available in the early 2000s from, of all places, Walmart for $29.99. This kit originally was just a toy I drove around. Then I got a little crazy and put Tamiya guts into it. It had, basically, it originally was just a personnel carrier. I designed it to be a band-aid. The idea was it could go around and reset tanks on the field. It was a game piece. Later, while going through my 21st Century Toys accessories, the kit came with a Dragon missile launcher from the 80s. And if you look it up, there was in fact a mount for the cupola of an M113 called an M175 mount that the Dragon could rest on, and a commander of a M113 could have an anti-tank weapon. It was fairly widespread, used a lot, and I believe a lot of the vehicles in Korea had them. They existed. I made one and have some pictures of it. It was fun. I drove around. I battled with it a couple times. And then one day I happened to be playing around on Shapeways, the 3D printing resource website. They happened to have someone who put together a M901 tow launcher. Basically, it was the Emerson tow launcher. I got one, I installed it, I played with it, and my life was complete. It was missing a lot of the details. I had to make them myself, and I'm still working on it. It didn't seem to stay upright. I was trying to make it so that it could be movable, and I was trying to base it on sort of like I had a couple screws that made it so it was frictiony. It didn't work so well. It kept falling around, so I ended up gluing it and taping it, and it worked. In battle was great. I mean, I did have the apple in the true patch. People complained a little bit, but it still took hits and died. The suspension obviously was a joke. It's a little toy motors, rubber band track. I had 2 of them, so I had a spare track just in case. Somewhere around here I have the chassis of a static one, which ironically the static chassis was metal, but the RC one was plastic. So, go figure. And I'm going to harvest the parts because they're going to go into the new one. The new one includes a 3D printed Emerson turret and cupola from Rich Johnson in San Diego. There's a picture of the turret inside his bag. Very well done. You may have seen a few pictures at the previous battle where he brought his. Now this, I confess, was a bit my idea. I told him about it. He got the guy that he does his design work to design it. And so far, he's sold a couple. So basically, if you don't know about the M901, the M901 was referred to as the Improved Tow Vehicle, or ITV. It had 2 TOW-2 missiles in it, and it had a thermal sight and the normal sight. They meant to support infantry companies. Now, in the old days, before the Bradley came along, this is what supported an M113 company following M60s or Abrams tanks, whatever unit. If you ever read the famous book Team Yankee, they're referred to quite a bit. They actually designed it pretty well. It's got some features that help you lock it together. It's supposed to make sense of the process. If you're very, very into it, you could theoretically make it workable. He designed pegs and sockets. Now the truth is the ITV could not actually fire on the move. The ITV would park. It had some gyro stabilization to go on, and the reason it did that was it had to stay put, so when they fired it, the controls understood what was up, down, left, and right, so that when they wire guided it, tube launch, optically tracked wire guided missile, remember? The wire came out from behind, so the crew could steer it to its target. It had a great advertising feature. It was high percentage first round hit with quick reattack, I believe was some of the language in the Emerson guide. Troops had to then fold it halfway to reload it. That's why you'll see on the back of the M101, or the M901, excuse me, they had a series of flaps that basically allowed it to, the flaps were there to protect the crew when they opened up the troop hatch and reloaded the thing. So this is going to require a little bit of fit and finish. I don't mind it. It's actually very, very solid. That will be the replacement turret on my M901. They do include the brackets to hold it up and the pintle for the M60 machine gun, which seems to be common on this, and the hatch for the commander. So obviously you have a choice. You can put the LED to fire in the optics, and then put the flash in both missiles, or one missile or the other. I haven't decided exactly what I'm going to do yet. He has a few wiring trays in the back. I don't know if you can see them. He did include a option to insert the wires through there. Back of this is a little rough. Nothing, a little standing stick won't help. He's got the back of the toe, so this is indicating that it is loaded. Rich showed me his on the field, and his reviews and his efforts to get these things in the States is impressive. We sold a couple of the DAK crew. I know at least one of the Australian fire sport vehicles got sold here. I know I got mine. Maybe one or two more. We'll see. I'm sure after a while we'll see a couple more. Some suggestions. Vismod Desert Training Center version would look really cool. This was the toolbox I was able to actually fit the 901 in. It's relatively small because the vehicle itself was small. I used to have details on it. It used to say M113 A1, or A2, but you know, we'll fix that. This is the old vehicle. As you see, I also have it painted in dual text. This is one of my pride and joy paint schemes. As you see, this is the Shapeways turret. It didn't have the same rigidity, even though I bolted it and pinned it and did a bunch of things to it. So this is the old baby. We'll take her out. Dual text paint. This was the 2nd Armored Cavalry Regiment in Germany. Did an experimental paint scheme. It was based on the concept of 4-inch squares. It used the same Murdoch paint scheme. This one would be the late summer or early winter verdant scheme. And the idea is that it replaced what is usually just the soft lines with hard lines, specifically 4-inch squares. They came up with 4-inch squares because apparently some of the Soviet optics at the time, the way that they were ground, had a finish on them that at a range of 2,000 meters or whatever it was, these dots would be almost imperceptible in the background of anything being looked at by the Russian optics. All right, if you took a look on the inside, little plastic toy gearboxes, pretty chintzy plastic track. If you drove this thing slowly and carefully, it worked just fine. If you went crazy, it came off pretty quick. So I found some old batteries. Believe it or not, this is an old Tamiya NiCad battery that fits 1700 milliamp. It fits in here just perfect, and it ran the tank. The MFU and DMD from a older Tamiya Sherman, and I have the power switch in the driver's hatch. That is an old speaker that actually came with the 21st Century Toys. I'm using a Henlong Traverse, and I found a gear in a educational gear set that works in there. You may notice it's getting a little worn. It is plastic. In this case, the engine hatch did open. I believe I glued it shut way back when to keep the thing stiff. I scratch built a periscope. It had a little optic in it, but it fell out. I used the Tamiya Tiger Apple base to put this thing up through there, and it's been abused. As you may see, the lights are broken. They're brittle. I mean, this is a 20-year-old plastic toy now. One of my cleverest paint schemes. That took a lot of work. Essentially, I made a mask. I used a ruler to figure out the 4-inch scale squares, and I did the math for 16 scale. So when I redo it for the other vehicle, it'll be just fine. This one, you notice, I did put the emitter in the actual thermal optic. Double-sided tape. In Arizona, it dries out and turns into goo. You can see that didn't really survive long, so I will try to find some sterner stuff. Now, this is also an Apple from the middle 2010s. You notice how it's black on the inside. It's totally black. So the earlier ones that were white were noticeable. And the Apples were a little different. There's two sets. One has slightly longer pins than the other. That was just press fit in there actually after I glued in these bars, these supports. Into the cupola we go. Just remembering what I did. This was probably the top to something. Some plastic, and it happened to fit perfectly, so I did it. Now, these educational gears held up pretty well. You can see they're kind of chewed up from the Henlong gearbox, but so I got now this one. I made a speaker extension. I used a common JST plug. This is a plug that Tamiya uses for its Traverse whatnot. This one was attached to the Traverse. Won't need that because the Tongde has Traverse. I hodgepodged the speaker connection for this speaker from the original and used the plug. And ironically, the two the double pin that is common in the Henlong and other tanks isn't quite the same as the Tamiya speaker plug, but in this case I made it work. More double-sided tape or Velcro, one of the two. I usually make these so that they can come apart. In this case I used Velcro. When it comes to the motors, I like to replace the bullet connectors with Deans. I set it up so I know which ones are what. I usually write a code here that tells me. If you speak Tamiya, you know that the MFU DMD, the DMD wires that come off of here are white, purple, blue, and orange. And the motor connections are usually green and yellow. But I use the Deans because you can cut off a lot of the spaghetti. Out you go, out you go. All right, back to basics. So if you see this, it's very, these are little stapled tracks, little rivet there in the end. So they can get a lot of slippage. This is not a great performer. These little motors are fun though. They work pretty good. You know what? Actually, I'm not going to take much of it apart because it's going to probably go on a LAV. I have another 18 scale. All right. See, as I said, I had to jury rig it. And I had to glue it, and I had a little strap on here once to hold it on for one of the battles. And I figured I could clean that up one of these days. But look, it broke. It's a lot of torque. So this one, when I pinned it, I actually screwed it through with these, and I was using these to adjust the friction. And over time, it stays upright here, but this just pivots too much. See, I even took an old, looks like a ammo can from a T55. Where the heck did I get that? I used that to be a little brace. But when this thing drove, because of the lack of suspension, this thing really did kind of pound. After the teardown of the old one, I have to kind of show you that I have been trying to work on this project for a while, and it actually follows one of the key axioms that I have in this hobby. The expression is, if you scratch build it, it will come. So over the years, my efforts at scratch building have been kind of, you know, I've had some good results and I've had some bad results. But when I was a kid, the very first conversion I ever did was the Verlinden conversion of the Tamiya M113 into the M901. I found that kit around here recently, and I've been looking for it in the garage, and I misplaced it. It's in a box somewhere. But I kept it out of nostalgia. It was rough, but it served the purpose. As I did the one in 18th scale, I started to collect parts. And then Andy came out with the M113. So my idea was, I may do an M113 based on his kit. That is the M113, and that is a resin conversion from Italy that I will show you in a minute. But I have plans to do all these projects up. We'll see which one gets done first. Well, the M113 has been a kind of a hole in the 1/16 scale for a while. I mean, they've made tens of thousands of them. They're in use by 50 countries, so you'd figure at some point someone would make it. My first effort, as I showed you, was 21st Century Toys. My next effort was my early forays into 3D printing. Cults 3D, the site on the internet that has lots of 3D printing files. I use them in conjunction with my Ender 3 to make a series of parts. Suspension parts. There's the hull, and there's the lower hull. I had a little issue with this was the beginning of the end of my nozzle of my printer. So some of these files didn't come out so well. Some came out pretty darn good. So the idea was, I was going to try to put one together, and if nothing else, use the running gear from this in conjunction with Andy's 1/16 scale. And yes, I did buy one of those. Relatively good shape. I mean, it feels pretty rugged. I mean, I'm sure that's fragile. That was what I was going to work with before Andy's came out. So, sidebar, I'm still working on this guy. This is a British Warrior, printed from the same company. It also has torsion bar suspension. That'll require a few more sets of prints. It's interesting because there's not enough room up here where the normal dry sprocket would be. They rig it so you can put a headlong gearbox in the rear. So this is going to be a pusher when it's done. Well, lo and behold, out comes not one but two kits. Now, I showed you Rich's kit a minute ago. This is the one that I actually bought first. This is from FC Model Trend. It's a 3D printed company made in Spain. If you haven't seen their stuff, look them up. Their stuff is amazing. Here's the hammerhead part of the M113 turret. Now notice, ooh, this one's got some damage. Look at that. Oh well, I could fill that in with some putty. I don't remember seeing that when I first opened it, because I have opened this before. That may be heat related from my garage. I showed this stuff to Rich a few months ago. He told me that, yeah, a lot of his stuff is meant to be more functional. So this cupola is more detailed. I may use a hybrid of some of these parts. Why not use it? The hatch and the pintle. Now, it didn't come with the M60 machine gun, but I'm sure I could find one of those somewhere. Now, here's my biggest happiness. The hatch. So this one also could be lifted and held in place as sort of an overhead cover. Anyway, this is well detailed, so this obviously will go on mine. And these are the details for the armor plates that protect the crew while they load. And these are the mounts on the hull of the tank to support the launcher when it's folded up. And just a few more details. The hammerhead, usually they didn't recommend driving around with it up because it would damage the hydraulics and whatnot. So what would usually happen was they would actually drive, if they were in a battle condition, they would put it into the loading angle, and that's one of the ways they could move around, because they would load it up through the hatch. And the vehicle had obviously 2 missiles in the launchers, and it usually carried 10 internally. Now, mostly their upgrades over the years were the missiles they fired. There were some changes in the fire control, laser seekers, that kind of thing, but the vehicle did see service up through Gulf War I. Ooh, there she is. All right, on the bench now is the Tongde M113 A-cab variant. I purchased the A-cab variant because it's based on the M13A1, which is closer to the early 901s. I am missing the smoke generators, but I think I can come up with that. I'm looking at the quality of the parts. It is fairly good right out of the box. I'm looking at some of the parts look a little basic, like I'm looking at the bolts on the spare road wheel there. They look a little chintzy. There's some flash on the machine gun mount, but the front vein is pretty well detailed. There is a that'll work. The ACAV variant comes with the M60s, which is good for my 901 because the 901 had a 60 as the commander's weapon. Some flash, some ejector marks, but nothing we can't handle. We're not using a lot of those parts anyway. Here's the decals, bright transfer style, the sticky ones. It comes with the 11th calorie, some basic decals. Unfortunately, I'm not using a lot of those because by the time my vehicle would have been around, they were using mostly black markings. Toe pintle, it's a little rough. Like, kind of soft detail on that, a little basic. The hubs. Alright, so 13, A1, A2. Basically, a lot of the parts are in use for both. Now this one's the variant with the metal suspension. I saw the one in action with Rich Johnson. We'll drive it around, but it's going apart. Hatch has got a magnetic hold on it. It pops up and turns, so you can do whatever you need to do. That's going to be alright because it's going to get modified. Power switch in the port are there. Commander's cupola. Commander's hatch. I have an accurate troop hatch, which will be important. I'll have to detail the interior. Back's got a speaker in it. There's the hatch. Battery port. So it comes with a Tamiya plug. You can see the mechanics up in there. There's the brain. 2 motors. We will deal with those pretty soon. Alright, the accessory package. Let's see what we have in here. Accessories, tracks, machine gun, charger, antenna, and the battle system receiver. Now we've learned that these are very, very ineffective in broad daylight, so Arizona, not recommended. And it comes with a battery, a plug. I don't know how many milliamps. I will try to figure that out. Let's give her a run, see what she does. Little Costco purchase. So the troop door keeps falling off. I'll have to deal with that later. Probably end up taping it. Good old-fashioned Tamiya plug. It's flashing. Let's see how that goes. Alright, I'll use a standby battery just in case. Oh well. See if that does anything. Alright, that's a steady color light now. Lights are flashing. Looks like we're ready. know what happens when it has a low battery. It gets kind of crazy. I turn it on instead of off. But because the tank's been on all day, I have a feeling it's not going to start. That's a mistake. Alright. Yeah, that doesn't have an on-off, does it? Doesn't say if it's on or off. Well, oopsie. I think I ran the battery out all day. Killed the battery the very first time out of the gate. Remember, LiPo batteries don't exactly like being killed. Okay, while I wait for batteries and some other technical issues, I'm going to slap some of the details on here just to get started. I know that's kind of out of order. A few won't hurt. First things first, I need the lifting hooks. I appreciate them using these bags instead of the usual heat shrink or heat seal. I can reuse the bags. See, that's basically right, but it doesn't touch flat, so I'm gonna have to sand those down. Technically, these are meant to cover each antenna port. That's what their real purpose is. So on an A1, they covered a little bit less. That's why in this version there's only the one over that, one over that. That was their official purpose. They're still going to need a little bit of fitting. Now it's convenient that this has the ACAV gun shields because I can borrow one of the M60s for the cupola of the M901. I might steal one off of the Andy's Hobby Kit. I could steal virtually everything off of the Andy's Hobby Kit to detail this. Still thinking about it. Yeah, that's wrong. Alright, that should be upright and those should be angled. Gonna open her up now. 4 screws in the bottom and the corners seem to be logical position. Here's the inside of the Tongde M113 speaker, version 3 of the electronics. Nice motors. This is what we care about right now. Nice solid traverse. There is there's the springy hatch, power supply. Battle system goes up through the hatch. So we're gonna take these off. Care about this. It fits pretty well square in there. Has 4 holes in it. Alright, those are a little shallow. I'll probably have to put some thicker, more penetrating screws in. I'm gonna try some of these. I got some self-tapators left over from the Warrior project. See if that does a better job. Perfect. You saw that I flipped the traverse upside down. I used the peg locations to host my self-tapping screws. All right, that's firm and ready to go. That is up, that is mocked. So, that looks good to me. All right, test drive number 1, out in the yard. Well, that's what it looks like when it travels. Secure that. Not yet. Oh, the pin came loose. And it doesn't like sand. And it took a hit. Try that again.
This concludes the live fire portion of today's demonstration.
Well, it's Christmas Eve, so a few of our projects will have to wait a day, but just want to say Merry Christmas to the community out there at large, and hopefully you get something nice in your stocking. Mine will probably be chocolate, but you know, armies do move on their stomachs, so enjoy the holidays, and Rudolph says hi.